So this course basically has 7 modules that we're going to cover. The initial is the input module, your input skills. As we know, when we talk about input skills, these are basically your language skills as well as your internet skills. Language, when we talk about specifically, we talk about not what we speak, but it's a difference when we speak versus when we write. Next is followed by your internet skills. Internet today is a big source of information, a bigger pool, a bigger chunk. And we need to make sure that whatever we are doing, whatever we are, writing needs to go onto the internet. But with so much of information already there on the internet, how do we make sure that our information stands out? That is what we're going to learn through this course. Next comes our core skills, which are mandatory and a must requirement when it comes to writing. So this includes your academic writing types, your research writing, and technical writing. Now, there was this small question posted in the chat box for me which said, what's the difference between creative and technical writing? When it comes to creative writing is all about your creativity, how you use different kind of words, your vocabulary, the way you present a given information. On the other hand, technical writing is basically about the technique of writing. You cannot kindle with a lot of vocabulary here because we simply say that there are 3 major people whom we are writing for. One refers to your technical experts who are going to know each and everything about the subject matter that you're talking about. Second is going to be the businessmen who are going to be into the business but might not know all the technicalities involved in writing. And the third refers to the novice people who are just reading it for their knowledge base. Again, the third category of people might not know all the technical jargons or the technical terminologies that you'd be using. So here, technical writing is structured writing. You're given a specific format. You need not move left and right. The simplest way here is that you stick to the format and you write. The next is your creative writing type. I've just elaborated the difference between the two. The next one is your business and marketing writing types. This is again something that is very much new into the industry, and we are catering to the business and marketing as a segment as a whole. This brings us to the output skills. What kind of an output are you going to receive here? So your content strategy, the way you're going to strategize for your content in a given amount of time. Here, we are also going to give you skills which are going to help you earn online as to how you can basically earn from the skills that you've just received during this courseware. A lot of pool of words that we collected on Mentimeter, which basically referred to what content writing is all about. It's a mixture, it's a mixed bag of course here. We are talking about all your skills that you have to have when it comes to writing. Writing is simply not what I speak and you write, or what you read and you write. It's quite different from this particular scenario. So let's look at these modules in a little detail as to what fine-tuning are we going to give you under these modules. So first comes our language skills. When we talk about language as a whole, content forms a basic part of it. So as we were discussing all those terminologies, let's come to a specific definition of content. It's as in publishing, art and communication, content is information, as well as experiences that are directed towards an end user or an audience. There was a simple statement which said that it's a one-way communication. No, your content is never ever a one-way communication. It's always a two-way communication. The day you believe that it's a one-way communication, you are communicating, but you're not receiving anything from the audience, that does mean the audience is not interested in reading whatever you're sharing with them. That day should not come ever in a writer's profile. Here, when we are talking about all these things, one thing that's most important is that content is the link building. how you build that kind of a link with your audience. How do you convince them? How do you persuade them? How do you motivate them to read whatever you're sharing with them? So here is what we're going to discuss. Language plays a very important role in content. So we're not just talking about how you convince, how am I speaking, but the way I am writing. Right from grammar to punctuations to tones to styles, etc. Everything has to be covered here. Understanding your target audience, we need to write for the audience. That is the major objective. Why? Because here, when we are talking about our audience, we're not just talking about the readers, we're also talking about the people who might be viewing the content. They must not be going away from the screen just after reading the initial 2 lines. That is where our target audience comes into picture. Even if that person has come to our page, maybe our web link, maybe our blog, or any other piece of writing, he or she has to stay tuned to it. He or she has to remain stuck to that particular page. That is how your writing should be. It's also said that you're not writing for a group of people, but you're writing for one person. So it's good to understand what that individual's requirement is. Here, we are catering to individuals of same needs, same wants, same desires. So we are talking about the common needs, we're talking about the common wants and the common desires of that person. So here, it's a process that we follow. The process begins from your research. The time it comes to your writing, it says that grammatically, punctuation wise, tone wise, style wise, your writing should suit the needs, wants, and desires of the people who are there. Now, here, when it comes to style, typically, the first question that comes up is what is style? So, for a writer, it's very important to know that what is this style and how effectively he or she wants to communicate. Here, I just pause for a minute to take the questions that have come. So it says that the first question is that what writing company or the reports that come under technical writing. So when we are talking about technical writing, we are talking about not just technicalities alone, means we're not just talking about the research domain. We are also offering things like uh, memo writing, letter writing, report writing. We are covering medical writing. We are covering journals, etc. So all these clubbed together form a part of the technical writing course. So here, when we were talking from the writer's perspective, when we're talking about a typical style, we are talking about the tone in which the writer is writing. Why is the writer writing about that particular topic should be very much clear, and the ideology of the writer should also be very much clear. So here we are talking about these 4 styles in detail during the course, which is expository, narrative, persuasive, and descriptive. So when I talk about these styles, the descriptive and the narrative style are most commonly seen. If you must have read famous authors like Ruskin Bond, etc., he gives a fine tuning of detailing around what is happening. Some examples like Annie Frank's diary, some famous diaries that you must have read, some famous books, novels that you must have read, the fine tuning of the surrounding, the things that were available around, maybe in nature, in terms of, the surrounding description has been very detailed. That is where I'm talking about the description in detail rather than the main character. The main character comes into picture a little later. The narrative style is where the narrator himself is defining or describing things, wherein he or she absolutely begins, and then when the beginning, from the very beginning, he or she is there in the narration. It's a kind of a way wherein he's interacting with the audience. Next comes the persuasive style. In the persuasive style, we are going to talk about how someone is motivating or persuading you to complete a given task. Usually, this is given for the writing of speeches when it comes to your Bollywood celebrities, when it comes to your politicians, etc. An expository is your complete stock of information. When it comes to writing something like a product description, or it comes to writing a typical recipe book, each and every fine detailing is supposed to be there. A pinch of salt versus a tablespoon of salt versus a teaspoon of salt makes an entire difference. So each fine tuning has to be there in the entire expository of content. So when we talk about these styles, each of these styles is unique in its own way. And we also have much more to this module when it comes to language alone. When we talk about the basic jargons, we're going to talk about the difference between a tactic and a strategy, the difference between an expert and an influencer, agglomeration of content versus aggregation of content. When we talk about something that is loosely available, how do we attach the strings together to make it perfect as a content, versus creative versus technical writing. I've already talked about it in detail. Readability versus searchability. When you look at a content, is it readable? And versus searchability on the internet, what are the key factors that we need to do there? The content formats, both online versus offline, print versus digital. The transactional cost, even the cost structure that is involved when it comes to your print versus the other part. The second module of this content talks about the tone and its type, the writing styles, and how a writer needs to be different. Sentence structure, common grammatical errors, and the grammatical errors that we'd be highlighting here refer typically to the spelling difference between the UK spelling as well as the US spelling. So when we're talking about the difference, this is quite common because we are reading everything on the web in the US, whereas in English, in India, the English that we follow is the UK English. So it's a very common error that is identified in the writers while they're writing, like the spelling of color, C-O-L-O-U-R is the correct spelling, the UK spelling, but what we see usually is C-O-L-O-R. Behavior, B-E-H-A-V-I-O-U-R versus B without the U, goes for the US spelling. Now, when we're talking about these spellings, even the grammatical structure changes here. So now here, when we're talking about all these things, these are covered under module 1 of the course. Let's move on and see what more is there under module 1. Here we're talking about your presentation skills, which refers to your punctuations, like your commas, your full stops, even their usage. A very common thing that's observed is that when a person wants to increase the length of a sentence, instead of full stop, the person starts using a comma or even a semicolon. But the proper usage is not seen at. When we talk about question marks and exclamatory marks, it's very in these days that we see multiple question marks and multiple exclamatory marks. What one exclamation mark and one punctuation, one question mark does is equivalent to what those four do. So it's not necessary that you exaggerate your content by adding n number of question marks there. It's quite easy to see that one single question mark also covers the same thing. We're going to talk about the content flow and presentation, how the entire content should flow when it comes to a typical presentation, as well as the text designing. That means the proper usage of each of these punctuation marks. Not everything in the content needs to be in bolds, italics, or underline. Here, when we're typically talking about your sentence structure, when we're talking about your headers, that is where we use the bold highlight. The indentation, the bullet marks, the justification of your content, the entire formulation in terms of font size and even font style. So all these are covered under part 1C of module 1. So here, when we are talking about all these things, it brings us to module number 2, which is our internet skills. It's one of the most interesting modules because here we cover a lot of things under the bigger umbrella of internet. When we're talking about internet skills, we're talking about the web at large. How many of us know n number of other things that are available to us other than Google? Google is the first search engine that we go to. It's a banking upon that we do when it comes to searching. So the best search engine as per the results is definitely Google. And why do we respect Google so much? The only reason that we respect Google so much is that the reason is simple. Easy availability. You open your phone, you open a search box, and all you find there is Google. Yahoo definitely covered a lot of market a few years back, but due to one or the other reasons, Google has taken over the Android market and has given a tough competition to other search engines. So we're going to talk about the other search engines that are available to us, and we're also going to talk about the other search engines other than Google who are going to give us more precise and specific results. So let me take you to a few other search engines and how they work. You'll have to log on to this one. Let me share it with you here. The search engine that I'm talking about here is other than Google. So now, how many of you know other search engines than Google? You can talk in the chat box and tell me if anybody knows any other search engine rather than Google. Till then, there are a few questions in the chat box that I would want to take up. So here, someone has asked that, do we get assignments in the class as well? Yes. So each and every day, the topic that is being covered in the class, you do get assignments related to the same. The trainer reverts back with your assignments in terms of the accuracy, how much accurate it was, and how many students are there in a live session when it comes to due to the pandemic these days we are taking only online batches, and we are preferring that students ranging between 12 to 15, that's the ideal range of students in a session, because it gives you more of a chance to interact with each other and see what others are also doing. So now here when we talk about in words, how can we use content? When it comes to content as a whole, content ranges somewhere from 100 words while you're writing some message onto social media versus 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 words when you're posting something for someone's website, when you're posting someone's articles, etc. So here in the chat box, I've received quite a number of things. It relates to Internet Explorer. Okay, that's the Explorer that you're talking about. Bing, okay. Byju's, okay, that's really great. And okay, there's a question here. The research method syllabus again, you can definitely see that again. We'd be sharing the slides with you. So here I am talking about something else when it comes to a typical search engine. What search engine do you go to when it comes to searching for typical facts? Can you give me a search engine that you use for searching facts typically? Something that you want to relate to, where you find typical good facts and figures? Try giving me options for okay, there's something above Wikipedia as well. Let's see what others have to. Okay, there's Ask, there's Britannica. What else? We don't go to Pinterest. We use Pinterest basically for pictures, etc. Let's see. Come up in the chat box. Answer. Quora is basically for question answering and talking about facts in typical. Let's come up with more. YouTube is basically for your videos. What else do we use when it typically comes to your internet skills? Okay, we have come up with something that's great, which is Google Scholar. How many of you have heard about Google Scholar before? No one? Great. I see a few people saying that they've heard about Google Scholar. All right, those who've not can simply log into Google and search for Google Scholar. All right, what I'm going to take you through today is Wolfram Alpha. I simply need you to be typing on Google WOLFRAM Alpha. And I'm just sharing how the web page is going to look like. So when it comes to searching typically for facts and figures, this is the best solution because even Wikipedia picks up information and Google picks up information from here. Supposingly, I want to look out for the population of the US. I'll just change it. Now, when I'm talking about the United States, it's giving me the recent history from 1970 till the early 2000s, the transactions, how it's grown, the current population as per the recent estimate of the US, that is 2018, 2017. And it also gives me the age distribution as to what and how many people range between 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 15, so on and so forth. The population city-wise as well. When I talk about the New York City, the Los Angeles City, Chicago, Hudson, Phoenix, etc. Even the comparisons are mentioned here. So it gives me a complete detailed analysis of whatever information I am looking for. When I come back to its main page, this is how the main page looks like. It gives me information related to mathematics, science, society, everyday life, and there are more topics that follow. Please take quick 2 minutes to analyze the complete page and let me know that you've understood why we prefer Wolfram Alpha over others when it comes to factual information typically, because they say that here, when it comes to Wolfram Alpha, statistical information is more precise and updated. I hope everybody must have checked it by now. Okay, great. I could see a few messages popping up that you've checked it. So moving ahead here, I'm going to tell you what other research skills are we going to talk about, what other internet skills are we going to talk about under this module. And in case you have any other problem, you can keep posting them on the chat box or in the Q&A section. So here, the first part when it comes to research skill is advanced online search. Google itself is a bigger bag that we've not yet explored as writers. When it comes to our advanced searches, when it comes to searching what and what not, everything is there on Google advanced search option, which people have not yet explored much. Next comes the internet through Google, wherein we are talking about the bigger dimension of Google, when we are talking about the bigger aspects as to what we've not yet seen on Google. The Google Keyword Planner. Keywords are the most important things when it comes to writing. If you have the right amount of keywords in your content comes out outstanding. Wolfram Alpha, which we've just discussed, your cover page designing, logo designing, softwares, etc., that we're going to discuss in length at detail in some time here in this course. So when it comes to the course at large, the detailing of the course, that is what you have to look at on our website. You'll find all these details available on the website as well. The data and research portion actually includes your analytics as to what your website is standing at, how much ranking does Google give to your website, and there are other ranking parameters that we look at, that is BooRank and Alexa as well. Then we come to the editing skills, and when we come to the editing, we have multiple softwares that we are covering: Grammarly, Ginger, Hemingway, etc. Then comes to the legal know-how, wherein we are talking about checking about your copyrights. And the module 2 also covers the spinning software, because there's a lot of spinning in the market happening these days. People copying content, which we are not actually into, but as a writer, you should know how you can check for the same. Creative Commons, Google local pages, a lot on blogging as well, because blogging in itself is a bigger domain. Your article directories, content tags, categories, etc. So here, when we are talking about all of these things, it's a bigger umbrella, that is the internet, which covers all these smaller subtopics.